Stand ready for my arrival, worm.
Since the release of Invincible's latest episode, fans have praised the show for being an incredibly faithful adaptation of the comic. But even with that faithfulness, there are major differences, especially in the first big fight of all Invincibles and the arrival of Conquest. Both the show and the comic are amazing in their own ways, but let's break down the biggest differences between the page and the screen. So buckle up and make sure you hit like, subscribe, and turn on notifications for more deep dives into the Invincible universe. In the comics, Shrinking Ray was a man with the ability to shrink to microscopic levels. During a battle against Komodo Dragon, he attempted to take him down but was swallowed whole and dissolved in stomach acid. In the show, Shrinking Ray is a woman, and while she is also eaten, she survives by growing back to normal size inside her attacker. She spends months being rebuilt, but by season 3, it's like the incident never happened. One of Mark's first villains in the comics was David Hiles, a former engineer turned terrorist who kidnapped students and strapped bombs to them after a tragic personal loss. This arc is completely missing in the show. While it's a brutal introduction to Mark's world in the comics, the adaptation chooses to skip it entirely in favor of other storylines. In the show, Titan seems like a man forced into crime to protect his wife and daughter, leading to his betrayal of Machine Head. But in the comics, that family doesn't exist. Titan's only goal was power, and his entire plan was just a way to take Machine Head's place as a crime boss. Both versions of Omni-Man flee Earth after their fight with Mark, but their motivations differ. In the comics, he takes over a planet to lessen his punishment from the Viltrum Empire. In the show, he wanders the galaxy, depressed and lost, until he accidentally becomes a savior to the Thraxans. The show gives Nolan a much deeper emotional arc, making him more conflicted than his comic counterpart. Amber's character's expanded in the show, but one major comic storyline seems to be cut: her abuse. In the comics, Amber's next boyfriend physically abuses her, leading to a controversial arc. The show removes this and instead focuses on her emotional struggles with dating a superhero. Donald Ferguson is Cecil's right-hand man, but in the comics, he's almost entirely robotic and has no issue with it. In the show, however, Donald has a full character arc, struggling to understand his own death and deal with the horrifying truth of his past. It's one of the biggest emotional additions to the series. In the comics, Omni-Man kills the Guardians in seconds, wiping them out effortlessly in a single page. The show extends the battle, turning it into a grueling, near-fatal fight where Omni-Man barely survives. This change makes the Guardians feel more powerful and adds extra shock value to the twist. In the comics, Mark briefly meets Spider-Man after being thrown into another dimension by Angstrom Levy. Of course, Marvel wouldn't allow that crossover in the show, but they still included a small nod to it. Agent Spider, voiced by Josh Keaton, as a clear homage. And of course, we can't forget the rest of the evil Invincibles. The show gives us this insane shot of them, staying true to the comics while bringing them to life in a way only animation can. Just look at this. The Invincible War wasn't just a battle, it was a massacre. A war that proved Invincible's greatest enemy was himself. And while the show nailed its adaptation, one thing's for sure: Mark will never be the same after this. But with even bigger threats looming, was this just the beginning?